Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Unfiltered Joy. I have a very special guest here today, a dear friend of mine, and one of the best gurus that I know around. I've got Karishma Donde. Say hey, Karishma.
Hello, how's it going?
Straight out of Tulum. She's been living the nomad life in Tulum for how long have you been there? How many weeks?
Been here since, I was in Playa del Carmen first, December 30th to January 3rd. And then I've been here since January 3rd.
And I'm excited to talk about all of the topics that we're going to jam on today because it will all kind of tie into you starting this nomadic experience after working a corporate job for a really long time and then moving into coaching for quite some time. And then this year going, let's just see what life tosses. Like, let's just let the heart lead. And that can sound really fun to a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, show me where you're at. I want to see palm trees and beaches and mountains and all the cool things. Like I see a lot of people doing this virtual nomad thing. And when you first told me about it, I was like, whoa, that is so cool. I wish I was gutsy enough to do that. I feel like it takes a lot of courage, a bit of planning, and also a ton of surrender and trust. And I feel like just in a short amount of time, you've learned so many life lessons around all of this. So let's get into it in just a second, but I'm going to ask you the question that I ask every guest when I open up this segment, if that's cool with you. If you don't have an answer, you can take a pass.
Okay.
But instead of saying, hey, tell us what your job is and what you do and blah, 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 it's like, ugh, that's so boring. My real question is finish this sentence.
Okay.
My soul came here to.
Be a wild woman.
Ooh, yes. Do you want to share more on that?
Um, yeah, I have a lot of passions and a lot of interests that don't traditionally fit into a box. And so anything that doesn't fit into a box is usually looked at as being outrageous or wild. And I want to embrace that fully and be able to trust that everything will be okay, even with me living out of the box and being wild and fully embracing all of my woman.
Yes. I feel like being a wild woman to me, actually, when I think about all that you're doing and all that you've done to get to this point right now, it is wild, but also wildly courageous. I think of like super brave to go, I don't know where I'm going to live next week. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. I don't know what my next job is going to be. I'm going to let life lead and trust that I am supported. And that feels wild and brave to me. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Welcome. Yeah, yeah. I'm really proud of you for being on this adventure. I can honestly say it's not something that I would be ready to do on my own and just like see what happens, but your soul has always just been like, it's okay. We'll figure it out. Do you get scared at all?
Always, you never know what for me, I never know what I'm gonna expect. Even though I like to put expectations on things, and I know we're gonna talk about that. But I usually I feel like I don't have a choice besides trusting, because I lose excitement in things very quickly. So one day I will wake up and I'll be like, this is the best idea in the whole entire world. And I'll be lit up about it and I'll talk about it and all the things. And then the next day I'll wake up and I'll be like, this is not exciting anymore. And so now everything I have communicated to the world of social or my friends are like, well, what happened to that thing? And I'm like, it's not a thing anymore. That's it, the end. And to a lot of people, that's not comprehensible, because We like things done very linear, in a linear fashion. And we like things that make sense to us. And nothing about anything that I do ever makes sense. It just comes down to me, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start this membership, and I'm going to spend 3 weeks developing it. I'm going to be really excited about it. But then when I'm in it, bye.
And then you'll literally just exit
Scene, stage left.
exit scene. Whereas, like you said, I think a lot of people go, okay, I've invested so much time, so much emotion, so much energy, maybe even finances into this path. And I have to keep going down this path. Otherwise, I've just screwed myself over. I've spent all this time, all this energy, all this everything, all this money. And like, what was it all about? Do you ever feel like, well, what was it all about? What was it all for?
Every single time, because I really feel like a lot of times I really feel like I'm missing out on something that is supposed to be very human, of like, this is like the thing, and this is my purpose, and this is what I'm here and meant to do. And I feel like my whole life I've been craving that feeling of like, I'm lit up by the fact that I'm an actor, and that's all I get to do. And I go to auditions all day, and I do blood, sweat, tears into this acting career. And I would kill to know what that feels like, but I don't think I'm ever supposed to know what that feels like, because that's just not what I'm born to do.
Why do you feel like that?
I feel like that because there's only so much pressure you can put on going after an outcome, no matter how big or large it is. And so for me, the outcome is, well, if I try all these things, and eventually one day it'll be my purpose, and it'll feel good, and this is what I'll want to do. And the more I try to do that, the more purposeless I actually feel.
Ooh, that's good.
And so it's just, that is my sign that is just not my path. It's not my path. That's not what I'm never supposed to know. And I'm only supposed to trust the things that excite me.
I'm going to say something that might be triggering, or you may say, like, that's not even true for me. But what just dropped in was like, I know for you, you're like, if you want to call it multi-passionate or whatever it is, right? I feel the same way a lot, where I'm like, that's an idea, and that's an idea, and that's an idea, and that's an idea. But like, then it comes down to actually getting all of that idea together. And I'm like, ugh, I hate this part. Why can't I just do the fun part? Right. But what I was going to say is, what about having your purpose be the pivot? Because you and I often talk about pivoting. I'm pivoting, which just means to anybody watching, I'm changing my mind. I'm changing direction. It's a fancy way in the world people are using today, a trendy word of like, I'm going to pivot here, like switch lanes. Do you feel like maybe your purpose could be to pivot?
Yes, I feel like I'm supposed to show people that it's easy to pivot, that things aren't permanent. Things don't have to be permanent, no matter how you look at things. Like, so many people ask me, how did you know the right time to quit your 9-to-5 job? There is no right time. It's always going to feel horrible to do anything that's outside of your comfort zone. There's no right time for any significant change you're making in your life, whether that's moving to Tulum and being a digital nomad, whether that's picking up your shit, moving to LA to be in the music industry, whether that's quitting your 9-to-5 job and becoming a coach. Like, there's no right time. Everything's a risk. And I think a lot of times people find safety in the box that they've carved out for themselves. And so they feel very trapped, and they're like, no, I can't leave this. Like, this is where I feel the best right now, which is fine. But there's never going to be a sign that comes on your desk and says, quit now. It's never going to happen. Right. And so I do think for me, and more than other people, even when I worked corporate, I had 10 jobs in 10 years, which people looked at me and they're like, you're crazy. Like, how do you do that? But for me, jumping those jobs got me pay raises, right? Every single time I jumped a job, I got a $20,000 pay raise. So when people are like, how did you make that money? I jumped jobs. Like, I didn't stay in a job.
Or
And
different
so
experiences, or
every
different
time,
connections to people and meeting different people, which then led to different
correct.
opportunities. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like you and I grew up in kind of somewhat of the same era. We're a few years apart, but right along the time where it was like, it started to be untrue, but it was still true that if you job hopped, you were an unreliable person. Like no
Yes,
one
I
should job
remember
hop.
that.
You
Yes.
should stay in this job for your whole life or at least 10 years. Otherwise, when you go to give your resume out to people, they're going to go, oh, she just job hops and you're off the table immediately. I mean, that's literally the beliefs that I held in my being since the day I graduated college,
Oh yeah. Oh,
until I
totally.
realized that that was bullshit.
Totally.
Like, and that's definitely not true anymore. That is
Oh yeah.
not
Yeah.
true anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely not. We are not stuck in any situation. We just feel stuck because there's something within us that's stuck that needs to move through us. Right. And so
Or we're
I
choosing to
do.
believe a story that's not true. Like, well, if I leave this job, then I'm not going to have all the vacation pay that I had before. And then I'm not going to have as good of a life and I'm not going to love my life. So I'd rather just stay here for the next 45 years than start with 4 vacation days, work my way back up and live a way freaking happier life doing the thing I actually love.
Oh, totally. Totally. And what I will say is pivoting gets easier, right? Because I think there's a lot of story around pivoting too.
Yeah.
And when you buy into that story of pivoting of like you're unreliable or like people don't pivot, successful people don't pivot or like, whatever story that you have around that, once you get out of that, it's just so much simpler. Life becomes easier, answers come to you faster.
Yeah.
So yes, I do think a part of me showing people to pivot is definitely definitely a thing.
Yeah.
um
I think it, like you said earlier, there is this box that we put ourselves in that feels very safe, very tucked in, very cozy. Like this is my thing, and if I do the thing that everyone else is doing, then I'm safe, or I fit in, or I belong, or I won't run into trouble, or it won't be hard. All the things I'm like safe right here because we were talking about earlier, feeling of lost, like feeling like you're lost. Have you ever felt lost in your life?
yes, I feel lost right now.
Like legit, you feel lost right now.
I feel very lost, confused, have no idea why I actually got the download to be in Tulum. But I think I said this to you earlier, but I feel like, is lost really lost, or is lost just feeling disconnected from yourself?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a major statement
Mhm.
of this trying to figure out who you are in life. That is life, in my
Mhm.
opinion. It is just this
Yeah.
consistent uncovering and discovering of who you are. And some mornings you wake up, whether you're in Tulum or Ohio or anywhere in the world, you wake up and some mornings you just go like, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And you may have your job, you may have your career rocking, but you feel lost in your love life or you feel lost in your daily life. After you leave work, you're like, now what do I do? I don't know what I felt like this right after divorce, right? I was like, who am I? What do I like to do? How do I spend time after work? Holy shit, what kind of food do I like? I was so used to operating under this togetherness that I felt completely lost in
Yeah.
myself. And the only place that I actually felt safe was work because I knew what to do. I knew how to follow the rules of come in at this time, do this thing, leave at this time. You'll get paid. You can still live in your apartment. You can still buy food. You can still get your nails done. You'll still be living and you can pretend that it's all good. And the reality is I was like, I feel so lost.
Lost. Yes.
But it was exactly what you just said. It wasn't literally lost. It was feeling lost, feeling disconnected from my soul.
Correct.
Like,
Yes.
what does my soul want? What does my soul desire? And I think that's why people feel unhappy a lot of times, because they stay in the thing that they think they need for safety when that's actually the thing that they need to leave to get closer to themselves.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And it's funny because right now, like, there's always an animal for me associated with being lost. And I think I said to you earlier, like, I feel like a lost puppy dog. Like, there's so many lost puppy dogs on the street of Mexico. It's crazy. Like, so many right outside. That's how I feel right now. I feel like a lost little puppy on the side of a Mexican street with my four paws following a car because I don't know where to go. And it's uncomfortable AF.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I feel lost, every single time I feel lost, I feel like it's followed by a huge awakening of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
So to literally never lose yourself and never feel what it feels to actually be disconnected from yourself, I think is actually doing yourself a disservice, because without being lost, there is no growth.
Mm-hmm.
And we literally need growth to be human, because if we're not growing, we're dying. And so if you stay in that box for life, you will be that person on your deathbed that's like, I wonder what if I had done that. I wonder what if I didn't give up on Tulum and come home. What if I had actually fucking stayed and just been uncomfortable and feeling lost and disconnected from myself? What if I had actually grieved whatever I needed to grieve? So now I'm not numbing my pain with work and working through it and figuring out where my next dollar is coming from.
Yeah.
So I literally think you have to have that in order to get closer to what your path is or where you need to go.
I think if you never get lost, it's hard to see a new path.
Yeah.
Right? It's like if you're always using what you think is the GPS, but in fact, it's only taking you the one way every single time, which is usually what our phones do, right? But if we decide to go to Tulum and we don't have any cell service and we don't have a driver and we have to take a bicycle all around the city, it's like, okay, I have to rely on myself to know that I'm safe enough to create a path, whatever that might look like.
Yeah.
And knowing that wherever that path leads me along the way, that's where I can eat and sleep and be, and not literally, but in life, I really think that the only way that you create the next version of yourself is to lose some parts of you, like get lost.
Yeah. Like you're literally building a new identity, shedding an old one and building a new one.
Yeah. Something else that we were talking about was just like never really feeling like there's been a home, like a home base, like never feeling like you're at home and always searching for the feeling of home. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I feel that I move a lot, and I moved when I was in my 20s. I moved a lot. I job jumped a lot. At the time, even though we started this conversation with pivoting, which that's exactly what it was more like I was trying to find my sense of belonging somewhere in this world from coming
100%.
from not belonging. And I never felt like I belonged when I was younger. We moved when I was a kid, which probably had something to do with it. So like the only place that I remember can feel like feeling like home was ripped away from me. And so then I feel like I looked at that place when I was older. It was Ohio. But when I looked at that place when I was older, I was like, I can't live in the cold. Like snow's not home. I can't live in like extremely hot weather. That is not home. That sounds uncomfortable. So I literally like rejected the one place that could feel like a home and have just been looking for home since. I move a lot because nothing feels like home, nothing feels comfortable. And I try to find home in, like, I always have this hope that I will travel and something will, like, a memory will spark, like, oh, this feels like a dream that I've had. This feels like a past life. This feels like me saying that I'm a star seed, like, has finally come true. And even though our whole thing is like home is in your body, which is true, home is in your body, there's also locations that you want to feel like home because it feels ungrounding to not have a home, to not be able to decorate a house the way you want, to be able to garden, to be able to plant the things that you want in your backyard, to have, a house full of friends and dinner parties and like literally a place just to call your own, and I've always been on search of that. So very similar to being on search for my purpose.
Yeah. You had mentioned something too, where you said, really hoping that being alone would get easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like this sense of, I think a lot of people are fear being alone, being lost, being lonely. They're all kind of running the same crew and thinking that starting over each time in all these different cities that you've been, all these different places that you've gone, because saying this out loud to you, it's like your nomadic adventure actually didn't just start this year. It's been happening your whole life just in the United States, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've
Yes.
been, reblooming and reblooming in different areas, but did starting over ever feel easier? Did you ever feel less alone?
Never easier, just different experiences. See, every time you start over, you're inviting a new awakening to happen. Every single time, whether that's ending a relationship and like now you're alone, or moving to a different city, or moving a different job because you've made a decision to change. You do hope that it gets less painful. Absolutely. And one of my big ones was after college, when I landed my first job out of college, and I moved to a different city than like where all my friends were. I mean, that was a very painful lesson, a very painful awakening in definitely learning to be alone. But every single time that I've made the decision to move, it's not that getting alone feels less painful. The loneliness hits you in different parts of the journey.
Yeah.
So when I moved to LA after I had moved out from college and had that first experience, the first place I felt lonely from that was in the beginning, because people were always over at my house in college, and I was in a fraternity, and I was surrounded by people, and I thought I had the best friends in the whole entire world until nobody visited me. My house was no longer full and it was empty. And the worst part was coming home every day, waking up every morning, because I knew I was alone. I wasn't surrounded by people that I thought loved me and all these things.
Yeah.
When I moved to LA, the beginning and end was not the hard part. Waking up in the morning was not the hard part. Sleeping at night wasn't the hard part. The hard part was all the in-between moments when you want to share experiences with people. And now it's literally impossible to make friends being in your mid-20s and having a job where everyone's way older than you. And LA is a very harsh place to make friends because nobody really trusts anybody in LA. So
isn't it crazy? Because it's like having lived in LA myself for 6 years,
yes,
which felt way longer than that. It was so crazy to me that this is one of the biggest, most populated places in the world, at least in the United States.
Yeah.
And it made me realize how much more disconnected it made everybody, because there were just so many people everywhere. And you never really knew who was doing what or why they were there, or who. I think a lot of people go to LA to try to find themselves, prove themselves, or make something of themselves. And when you have that mixing pot of people, it becomes so strange to me that it is difficult. It felt very difficult to me to make friends.
Yeah.
I mean, and
we're not the only two that ever say that, because everyone always says like LA is this land of transplants and like all this stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing is everyone's trying to do one of those three things. And so they're so caught up in that they don't even have room to invite people or trust new people into their circle. And so everyone who has friends in LA, especially the time that me and you like moved there, that was like, for me was 2010, which was before the Instagram era, before influencers, before Facebook groups, like before all the things that we have now. Everyone was a childhood friend. So you're literally trying to break into circles of bonded people, right? And so you're almost having to prove yourself in a way that's inauthentic to you. Mm-hmm. And that inauthenticity is like seen by everyone else. And they're like, who is this girl? And so that can get very lonely in trying to find your friends, trying to experience different things, and like how many friends you cycle through. Like I can't tell you, I was in LA for 10 years, how many different friends you just go through. Like 1 month you're besties, the next month you're no longer besties. Like you've made another friend, maybe, hopefully.
It's the land of convenience friends, right? It's the land of like everybody. There's everybody and there's nobody, there's just,
oh yeah,
you want to go do yoga, you can find 5 bajillion people who want to do yoga with you, but good luck trying to find your soulmate friend. I mean, good luck, because it's just this massive sea of people, and being able to thread through every single person. Like you said, like they might go get an acai bowl with you this Saturday, but then you don't hear from them for forever.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. Absolutely. And then it's like, by the time like I made friends or like whatever, the friends leave, right? Like people are just always leaving. People are always coming. And so I would say like loneliness in LA versus loneliness in the Bay Area were completely two different things, two different experiences, two different growths, two different awakenings on loneliness, really. And then going anywhere else, you eventually forget, because you get comfortable in the one place. So like, yes, I got comfortable in Los Angeles. Yes, I lived in a million different homes and places and apartments, But I got comfortable in LA because LA, the city, started becoming more comfortable to me. Same thing happened in the Bay Area, where it was just like I was there for 7 years. It was great. I got very comfortable with the city, not necessarily the people or the surroundings, but then you find comfort in the everyday city. You always know what's happening,
In the
where
routineness. It
places
becomes
are.
like the routineness of it all, right? Like I always knew like
Yes.
yoga happens on this time and this time. Okay, this happens
Yes.
over here and then this happens over here. The sun rises over
Yes.
here and it goes over there. It's like
Yes.
you know where your places are and you find people in and out along the way, but what makes it feel like home?
That is a great question.
Like
But what I have always pictured something to feel like home is somewhere that makes you feel more grounded. And I think I was telling you this earlier, but all my moves have felt very chaotic. Like there hasn't been one place where I've like flown into and I'm like, I can breathe here. It's actually the opposite. I actually can't breathe a lot of times when I first am in a new place. And so automatically when I'm not connected to my breath, I'm like, I'm lost. I'm disconnected from self. I have no idea what's happening. Why am I here? And then it's very easy to get into that mode of like, what am I going to do? I feel trapped. Why did I come here? Right. And it goes back to like, there's no such thing as trapped. There's what a series of decisions and choices you make, and then you decide what to do from there. Right. But to me, home feels like I can take a deep breath. I can smell the air. I can envision my life here. Whatever I'm doing, it doesn't matter at that point then like what purpose is. It's like whatever I'm doing, I can do here. And I feel like I'm always on that mission.
I love that you used the word, shoot, now I totally forget. What's the word that you used first to describe home? Grounded.
Grounded, yeah.
Grounded, that lands so true. The other words that are coming through for me are authentic. Like I'm grounded, I'm authentic, free.
Yeah, it's almost like this feeling of like everything feels magical versus everything feels too challenging, like where I'm focusing too much on the negative.
I wouldn't
meet people. It's too hard to get a job. It's too hard to get around. It's too hard. Like when there's too many too hards, I feel like number one, 100% disconnected from myself, but also that's when I start questioning, like, can I actually live here? Does this place actually feel like home?
Yeah, I think home to me, I wouldn't use the word magical, but I know that that is a word that fits for you. I would use the other word I would use is safe. Like I think of, and this is a great conversation because I know that the people, our listeners, are going to start going, wait, what is home? What words would I use to describe home? And I think for a lot of people, home immediately gets locked into your childhood home or where I grew up, that feels like home. But that's not necessarily true. That's not everybody grew up in my house where we were crafting and cooking, and I never felt unsafe. Well, that's not true. I probably did, but not in my conscious brain. Like I had two parents. We lived just fine, and I always felt safe. I always felt happy. We rode bikes, we went on vacations, we did different things and that. But my home, every time I go to my parents' home, which I have never known anything else. It's always been the same home for me. They still own the same house, you know? But that actually feels like home for me because it's safe, because it's grounded, because no matter what I do in that house, my parents will always love me and accept me exactly for who I am. No matter which version of me shows up in that house, I'm safe to be me. And I
Yeah.
think like in talking about this now, I realize like that's home for me.
Yeah.
And
It's
then we
beautiful.
go out trying to explore what that home looks like in adulthood. Either some people might be creating their own home with families or on their own as a solo venture or as a duo or whatever that looks like for anyone listening or watching. But if we bring it back down to like what home makes you feel like, that's an interesting concept, you know?
Yes. Yes. I mean, that's the whole conversation of like home is in your body first. And as me and you talk about all the time, core needs is everything that I need on a physiological level being met.
Mm-hmm.
And if even one of those is a no, then you can argue like, then you don't feel home in your body because you have a need that's not being met right now.
And you feel like you said earlier, disconnected from yourself. Like
Yes,
one of
that's a
those areas is off their wheel or whatever you want to call it. Off balance. That's what I was looking for. Off balance.
yeah,
Then you don't feel at home.
yeah,
It's
yes,
interesting too, because I think I've done a flip. I think I've done a flip where I used to feel like home was nowhere. And like you, I was like, okay, moving to California. I'm gonna make this my home. Like it was like a mission. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah, I do.
nope, this is gonna be my home and I'm gonna make it my home. It's gonna be mine. And I felt like the harder I tried to put a stamp on it, the further from home it
Further
felt.
away. Yep.
And then the thing that changed for me the most was again going through divorce and refinding myself and all the things. That was a major change for me. But I had the opportunity right then and there. My mom called me right away and she said, don't worry, you can come home. I'm flying out this weekend. We'll pack up all your things. We'll pay for the cost. Well, don't worry about money. Money is not a thing. We'll take you home. And ooh, it gets me so choked up. And I remember telling her, I need to stay here because this is my home. And it was such a weird moment where my body was like, I finally believed myself
Yeah.
that it by going home to Michigan wasn't actually going to help me feel at home. And it wasn't because my parents wouldn't make me feel at home. I mean, my mom would do all the things she always does, and my dad and my sisters and my whole family and all my friends that still live there. I had every reason to go back to my childhood location to try to find that sense within myself, but I knew it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to stay in California to figure out how to find home no matter where I was in the world. And I think that what I realized in reclaiming myself is that I have a home everywhere and I have a home nowhere.
Yeah. Love it.
It's so crazy because they don't go together, right? Like I can literally when we got the opportunity, I love that I can call it that now. I didn't see it like that last year and a half ago when it was like California or Ohio. What are you going to do? Middle of pandemic. But truly now I see that when we got the opportunity, meaning me and my partner got the opportunity to choose like Ohio or California or stay long distance and maybe not see each other for like a year and a half, however long. I was like, you know what? It's okay because I can find my sense of home here in Ohio. I can find it anywhere and I can find it nowhere. And what I want to talk about next with you, unless you have something to say on this,
No, please go ahead.
is what are ways that I know you're still in the process of, and I am too, always evolving in this space called home, but what are some of the ways that you allow yourself to come back to yourself? Call it home, call it coming back, call it found instead of lost, any of those things. What are some of the ways that you have created for yourself that allow you to do that?
Um,
Or are there any?
I think number one always starts with awareness and acceptance. I think with being lost, with not feeling home, and with being disconnected from yourself, the first thing that you let into your body is pain. And that pain can be anything. It can be grief. It can feel very like you've lost a lot of people from around you because you've literally taken yourself out of the picture. And sometimes, for example, when you're in different countries, like you can't just call somebody. Your phone doesn't work, you know? And I think you have to give yourself that grief and pain period. And a lot of times, which mean you preach like 24/7, is like pain is never going to be comfortable, no matter how much you know about it. The only thing that's going to get better is the tools that you have to deal with it. And so if you're still in this place of like, well, I'm denying my pain and I want to rush these emotions, that's never going to happen at your timeline, at your expected speed. And with any major change, whatever it is, whether it's moving or whether it's a job change, there's going to be loss, there's going to be grief. When you leave your 9-to-5 job, you've lost your consistent income, right? Me and you can sit here all day long and in our mind be like, but I'm going to be a 6-figure coach and like, it's going to happen. Clients are going to be pouring in. Yes, absolutely. But it's not going to happen if you don't grieve the fact that you actually feel pain from the money you're losing at first. It's never going, you're not going to be that 6-figure coach you want to be. And I think the same thing goes for every single time you feel loss in your life of any kind, is there's something you're attached to that brought this change on. The reason why you decided to change in the first place was because you didn't want to be attached to that thing anymore, but you were attached. Can you accept
in a job, that? In a relationship, in a location, in a anything. Yeah.
But can you accept that? Right? Like, am I aware that I was even attached to that in the first place? Can I be aware that I was attached to that and it was unhealthy? Can I be aware of that and be okay with the fact that that was true for me? Then can I accept it? Like, can I accept the fact that I'm grieving? Like, I really hate the fact that I have to sit here and tell you that I'm grieving something that I don't want to be grieving. I don't want to be grieving that. I thought it was already done, right? Like, I don't want that pain anymore, but it's here. And it was buried deep in my body. And if I didn't fucking come to Tulum, it wouldn't have happened. I would never have felt that. I never would have had the opportunity to feel that loss in my life.
Yeah.
But the hardest thing for us as humans to do is get off of our ego stand and be like, I do feel that pain. I do feel that grief. And I'm allowed to feel it for as long as I need to feel it. I'm allowed to write about it for as long as I need to write about it. And not judging yourself, because in doing that, you're actually giving yourself permission. You're showing yourself that you are deserving of more great things in your life than what you've already been accepting previously.
So good. Also, I just want to say thanks for coming on and being so honest and open about feeling lost right now. Because it's easy for us to say, oh yeah, I used to feel lost. But when you're actually feeling it in the moment, it's a really courageous act to put it out there But I also think in doing so and acknowledge, it's just like this full acknowledgement of here's where I'm at. Like that's one of the first things we have to do is just say like, here's where I'm at. I accept that I'm here.
Yeah. And it fucking sucks.
Yeah. And it sucks.
Nobody ever wants to do that.
Yeah.
But it's a part of change. It's a part of life. It's a part of feeling getting not I would say, since all pain comes in different flavors, is the reason you never get used to the pain. And it catches you off guard every time.
Totally.
But we have to feel it. We have to feel it. There's no other options.
I think
you can't change cities, homes, jobs, relationships, and expect to be in the same comfort level and same safety.
Oh man, I could have instantly moved back to Michigan right then and there, had like this huge support system of people all around me, all the things, whatever I needed, whatever I wanted. But that would not have changed the fact that I was so sad and angry and embarrassed and all the things. That wouldn't have changed the feelings. That wouldn't have changed the feelings. It wouldn't have made it any easier. It would have made it easier to distract myself.
Yes. Yeah.
It would have made it easier to go like, oh yeah, like it's all good, you know. It would have been easier to put on a mask, but it wouldn't have made it easier to navigate and move on and find myself and create the new path home, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I did during that time, and I still do today, because like I said, like sometimes I'll feel lost in a season of life, like months or a year or years. And sometimes I'll feel lost for a day or for 2 hours. So it comes in all shapes and forms. And I think that one of the things that I realized, and I'll use moving to Ohio, for example, because it's a very cut and dry thing. I think we were talking about the very emotional side of it, and it still comes back to emotions, but on another level, also this search for belonging within myself and just feeling at home comes down to those words that everyone has to choose what those words of home mean for them. And for me, it's that safe, that freeing, that groundedness, authenticity, and even I would add in variety. I think for you too, like variety is a big part of home, like keeping. So what I chose to do was sit with those words of, okay, home actually feels like this. What does that look like in real life? And for me, it was like, okay, I got to get connected to local things. I got a paddleboard. I got to buy myself a paddleboard because the water makes me feel super grounded, but I don't live on the beach anymore. And we don't just have a beach in our backyard. Like we live in Ohio. There's like nothing, right? For a while. And to find my authentic voice again and whatever I needed to do to go on my daily walks, you know, and accept that this suburban neighborhood doesn't look anything like my sunsets on the beach, but I can still feel safe, grounded, free, authentic here by calling in some of those things that make me feel that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's not always like the doing of the things like the paddleboarding or going swimming or whatever, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
The
Sometimes
actual act
comfort
of
routine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Finding that yoga studio. I mean, you're over in Tulum and it's like one of those important things to you is finding the wellness centers.
Yeah.
And participating there. Does that make you feel anywhere closer to the home within you?
It makes me feel unspokenly understood. That's like such a weird, deep thing to say. But I think a lot of times in the profession that me and you are in, it's not just the coaching profession, it's the embodiment side of the work that we do. So whether that's breath work, whether that's movement, whatever it is, that to me is not fully developed in any of the places that I have made home previously. And when you come to other countries and see how developed that side of their communities are, it doesn't matter if people agree with your opinion or don't agree with your opinion, but the fact that you can easily access different modes of medicine almost so easily is something that will always inspire me to bring that to any place that I want to call home. And it makes me realize, like, this shit can happen. You know, this is like what I talk about when I say magical, is like, for if anything else, the one thing Tulum has really inspired in me is like, you don't have to give up on your dream of a wellness center because it's here. It's already fucking here. People come here. People come to Tulum just for this type of stuff. And it could be the reason I was brought here, right? To see that like anything really is possible.
Yeah.
And I don't even have to speak to anybody about what I do or the classes I'm attending or anything, to just know that I'm already understood, because everyone goes there for a reason. Right? So I don't have to explain that part of myself. Whereas in the States, I'm like, yes, we do breath work, right? People look at you with a blank face, like you help people breathe. Like in indigenous communities, these forms and these modalities that me and you teach are forms of medicine. They're not just, oh, it's another yoga class. No, yoga is medicine. Breathwork is medicine. Dance is medicine. Women's circles and gatherings and moon circles are medicine. Ritual is medicine. And because it's such a big part of my belief, it's a big part of my lineage, big part of who I am as a person and what I preach and what I teach, that becomes important to me, to not constantly have to validate myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in a position where I have to validate myself every single day or every single time, or people looking at me like, people pay for coaches like you.
Yeah.
Because that does actually make me feel crazy after a certain point of hearing it a million times, right? You question yourself. You're like, is this real? Like, am I really doing this for a living? I mean, you question yourself.
Even though you've had people time after time after time that you've worked with that say, oh my gosh, working with you, coaching with you has significantly changed my life. I'm a totally different person. I mean, we have testimonials all over the place, right? Hearing a couple of people question your passion and question your gifts, like, takes away tons of that, like, affirmation and validation immediately.
I mean, when you're around something that's already in the 3D, that's something you believe in, it makes it easier for your subconscious to adjust, right? So immediately when I see this wellness center here, I'm like, this is real. Somebody has literally built $1 million wellness center that actually hones in on the medicine that I teach, that you teach, that we preach about every day. Right? Things that like actually put us in the hands of service. That excites me. That actually gives me hope for the future.
And when
And
you said that, I just literally got chills up my spine. I was like, ooh, that's pretty cool. It is, because it's like the things that you don't see every day, but they're there. And just because everyone's not doing it every day, well, people are going to gyms every day.
Yeah.
You know, people are going to restaurants every day. It's just so normalized. Certain things are normalized as this is what you should do for yourself. But it's cool that you're being reminded that the things that are so much a part of what makes you feel like you are actually normal. Right
Yes,
there, right there.
exactly.
Like it's
If you
not normal if
came,
you don't go there.
yes.
Like who
And
are you
that's
if you don't go to your wellness spot in the morning or anytime during the day?
yes, exactly. And they made it like, this like hangout place, like you can have smoothies and vegan food, and everyone kind of is either a participant in some type of work you've done, or somebody is doing probably very similar things to what you're doing, which is very nice to see. When you land in Tulum, to the naked eye, you would never see that. You know what I mean? It's not hard to seek out, but you would never see it
Yeah.
if you were not really into it. And so this is where magic comes in for me, where it's like, I don't know how I heard about this center. I don't even know how I heard about that it's in Tulum. I don't even know who told me about it. Nobody. Right? But I come here and everyone's like, are you in these conscious groups? Are you going to this woman's circle? Like, this is what people do for fun and to go out and for self-care. And yes, it's hard to get around, but it's everywhere. And I think that's very special.
That is
And
very special.
so I think like I do seek that type of stuff out. It's why I feel like travel is really important, is because you literally get to see this side in a lot of these third world countries because it's so preserved.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, being in Tulum, it's like very cool seeing that. It's very sad to me to see the party scene because I feel like it actually disrupts what everyone else is trying to do here. But the parties and the things and the things and the things is how this place really makes money, and like tourism and like all that stuff. So that's actually like sad for me to see, and that's what people see when they first land here is like, yeah, Tulum beach parties. But up there's like this whole other subculture that thrives here. You know what I mean? Like
That people
in the
go to
States,
Tulum for wellness.
if you are a yoga teacher primarily, and like that's what you do, a lot of times it's hard to make a living
Yeah.
doing just teaching. This is what I've also found. Like if I was just to be a breathwork facilitator, I would be in the same boat, right? But in Tulum, people make a living doing this for how expensive it is. This is NYC prices in Mexico. People make a living doing wellness practices that we can't get paid peanuts for in the United States. And that to me is fucking magical. So
And they should. And they
that's the type of
should.
shit that gives me hope. And
Right?
that makes me excited. That makes me excited.
That is. It is.
Yes, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I think it's amazing. I think it's so amazing. I'm so proud of you for just bringing this full circle, for speaking your truth, where you're at right now, for having the courage to go and live this lifestyle that it's not easy. It's not easy to do, and it feels hard, and it feels confusing, and it feels kind of all over the place and lost and things like that. And yet there's so much that you're going to look back on and go like, whoa, remember all of that in my life? I think we both
Yeah.
have those moments. It just makes us who we are. And it's just such a beautiful experience. One of the things that I love to do at the end of these segments is offer up our viewers a little something to try on for size. Is there anything that you want to offer up as a takeaway for our viewers to maybe try on for size this week?
Do something out of your comfort zone. And all of us have a wild woman. So what does yours look like?
Ooh, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for that. You guys, that's your alignment assignment, I'll call it, for this week. Drop any replies, any comments, give all the shares. below on this page, or you can go to Karishma's Instagram. We'll drop it in the segment description, but also tell people where they can follow you, follow your journeys, get more of you, breathe with you, all the things. Like, how can they spend more time if you're available?
Well, my Instagram currently is Karish Travels, all about my traveling experiences. I do a lot of different things, not just one, as you can tell, wild woman over here. You can find all of that on Karish Travels or karishmadonde.com/digital nomad, and it'll list out all my services.
Yay! Thank you so much for coming on today. It means a lot to me. I love that we can be connected while you're in Tulum and I'm here over here freezing in Ohio. Like, you should have a bathing suit on right now sitting by your pool, and I've got like my beanie and my winter pants on. But it's all good. This has been a great jam today. I appreciate you so much. I'm so grateful for you, and I just want to, send you all the love in all that you are about to do, all that's coming on your journey.
Thank you, my love, for having me.
See you later.